Recording. Thank you. Good. So I'd like to welcome everyone to this European Open Science Cloud Future and Research Data Alliance Working Group on Artificial Intelligence and Data Visitation, which has been going on for the past 3 years and arose largely out of concerns with regard to two specific, incidents. The first or the most important one, of course, was COVID, where we were concerned to look at, and the RDA generally was concerned to look at how we could promote data sharing among scientists during this public health emergency. And I think that the Research Data Alliance did an enormous amount in that. And then we set up this working group on both artificial intelligence and data visitation because we were interested, firstly, in AI. And then the data visitation, we tried to connect to AI, but most of the working group and most of the outputs originally were focused on artificial intelligence. However, then Patty came along, and at an RDA plenary session, I think it was 24 in Costa Rica, she met some of the great people in our working group, and she brought in a project that eventually became an RDA Tiger project on data visitation. And and she actually ran that part that together with Say Young and others in a fantastic way with fantastic people. They have also great outcomes that they have for that. And Patty will start with talking about that. And then we'll come back and talk about what's also been done within the RDA working group, but also the future and the future direction that Patty wants to take us in, not so much necessarily within the RDA working group, but looking forward to a Thursday session on AI agents. That said, and before I turn over to our fearless leader here, I would ask you maybe in the chat if everyone could just introduce yourself briefly in the chat. And maybe just to make it interesting, you can say, of course, your name, where you're from. If you want, you can put your email address in there. You don't have to. Whatever you want there, you can put there. But maybe also say something about why you were interested in this session with regard to artificial intelligence or data visitation or just wanting to listen to Patty. Whatever you want to put in the chat, we'd like to have it, and that would help us also as we go forward here. Patty, the floor is yours. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Francis. Okay, hello, everybody. Let me find my slides. I'm going to just start it from here, somewhere in the middle, since Francis didn't start it from the beginning. But that's okay. That's fine. Let me see. I have to do a slideshow. So can you see my slides?
Patty, we can see your slides perfectly. Thank you. And we can hear you and see you as well. Thank you.
Good, good, good. Okay, so I'm Patty Buendia. I'm the Chief Data and Technology Officer, and I'm founder of Lifetime Omics. And I will be talking a little bit about the history of this project with Francis and the AIDV working group, and how the evolution of artificial intelligence in the past years, how it has informed this implementation of this AIDV policies. And so I'm going to also go back a little bit to the history. Francis correctly told you how I first came in contact with this fantastic group, the AIDV group at the Costa Rica plenary in 2024. And then I found out that our tool that we developed at Lifetime Omics, which uses data visitation to run quality control on data before data sharing, how well it aligns with the objectives of AIDV. And so we developed this proposal to work together and implement the policies of the research data the RDA AIDV working group. And so the next step in 2025 was actually when we got funded by the RDA Tiger program. And we had a fantastic collaborative project in which we met actually weekly for 5 months. And we had great participation from RDA members from across the globe. And after these 5 months, we continued meeting monthly. And you're gonna hear later that we're now evolving this into a new working group called Agents Visiting Data. But first, let's stay a little bit here with the history of DV4RDA, because it's going to inform what happened next. And so we worked together in brainstorming how to implement these policies, in developing the priorities, and also in discussing how to implement the policies into the software. And this was done together with Lifetime Omics, our software development team. And so finally, then in 2025, we finished the project, and some of you might have heard about it at the last plenary in Australia. And it was actually at the end, more in November, December, that we published some of these outputs with regards to policy and governance. We published some new language for IRB protocols and informed consent forms, including descriptions for data visitation. And we also published a template for system security evaluations, all related to the original policy recommendations from the AIDV. And we did some research on specifically also on how AI is and the evolution of AI, the way AI is evolving into more autonomous agents, etc., how that will affect not only visiting data visiting models, but also federated models, which are very similar. And we published a report in Zenodo called Geographies of Trust. I added links to all of them, so you're all welcome to click on them. I mean, once the slides are available. And we, as part of the project, of course, we drafted and wrote different user guides, and we developed some outreach videos and demos that I hope you will all see when the slides are available. And regarding of course, this was a tool implementation project. So we implemented new features into Fairless, specifically focused on system security strategies, aligning with the policies, AIDV policies, and the NIST requirements. We also included support for, this was very important, AIDV has a consent focused policy. And so we implemented support for checking that the data from human subjects are, for each subject has a consent. We did that being guided by how it was implemented by the NIH dbGaP repository, and used the informed consent ontology for that. And we also enhanced user identification verification and other authorization controls, and developed at that time also, or at the end of the project, we developed an implementation roadmap, a draft of what we're going to do for version 2 in Fairless, using more of the newly developing agentic AI. So how did we move from more a traditional policy implementation to an agentic AI implementation? This is probably one of the focuses of this talk. And first, let's look a little bit back on how Fairless version 1 was developed. It started in 2024, so a lot of the platform uses the static or rule-based code that is in general more secure and safe with data access. And it does use AI, but the AI was constrained to only read the data dictionary and the metadata and could not access the raw data. And well, that will continue to be so, in fact, in the new version. And so we were focused on all that by using deterministic rule-based HIPAA-compliant code. A lot of our use cases are for biomedical data. So now we're looking at the actual evolution of AI and how it has informed the roadmap. And many of you are familiar with obviously how this all happened, and with the ChatGPT being launched in 2022. And later came API access to these LLMs. Actually, the API access existed much before that, and there were also some LLM chatbots, but we're really talking about the new generation of LLMs. And after that, we have the semi-agentic assistants that were launched in 2024. These are assistants that can actually run several steps, but they only respond to user prompts and are not autonomous. They don't set their own goals. What you can see here is that I've also added a column on if this is used in Fairless or not. And so version 1 of Fairless only used this API calls to, as I said before, to annotate the metadata or the data dictionary. But for version 2, we are going to implement all kinds of artificial intelligence and agentic AI. You can see here which ones. And finally, we are now approaching into the autonomous agent era. And not only, actually, some of them were launched in 2024 already, but they were not very stable. They were more just exploratory or experimental, perhaps. And what is interesting is that even some of the semi-agentic assistants, the semi-autonomous assistants, they are becoming more autonomous in 2026. Many of these other semi-agentic assistants are now acquiring or new features that allow them to be more autonomous and perform many steps without user supervision, or human supervision. So that is an interesting development, but it's something that we are not going to be adding in Fairless. And the talk today is really to discuss how implementing this new emerging autonomous agents or semi-autonomous agents, how they require, what kind of policies they require, and what kind of guardrails. So now we're looking into the future for version 2 of Fairless. We are first adding something that is more of a simple task, even though I say here, simplified task. It's a simple task of adding an AI-powered chatbot. You can limit them. They only respond to prompts, and you can limit it to only look at the user guides, not read any data, but they can give you some of their already programmed knowledge. So what is more interesting is actually being able to use some of these semi-automated agents. And one of the things we have realized is that, especially because we work with biomedical data, we do not want to have this agents access the data or the raw data or any kind of even the identified data. Even if it's de-identified, some of these agents can identify the data again. So we are now working with digital twins, or we're calling them privacy-preserving digital twins, because there are all kinds of digital twins out there. They represent their representation, synthetic representation of the original data set. But all the identifying information is removed, and also detailed information is removed, and they're described at a different level. And so using these twin environments, agents are allowed to operate even in a semi-autonomous way. So here is one of the digital twins workflows that we are working on, and it has many stages here that I'm going to describe. So the first step here is a very interesting one. If we are talking about biomedical data, this could be actually, if it's other kind of data that doesn't involve personal information or personal health information, it might be possible that this can also be done by an AI agent. But specifically for this privacy preserving digital twins and trying to capture all the information of the original data in a model, we expect a human to develop this model, either a statistician, bioinformatician, etc. And this is actually can take days or weeks to develop, even in a team. Now, as a step 2, we're actually using Fearless QC for this. This is a more simple task in just creating some scrambled small sample data that is de-identified. It's already reading de-identified data and generating a dictionary that describes the data. And then in step number 3, we are now using an AI agent to develop a plan to implement software that builds the digital twin from this data. So using the model from step 1 and the data from step 2, the AI agent develops a plan to develop software. This is done in seconds, and it's, seconds, 60 minutes, or could be 1 minute or 2 minutes. And these plans are very detailed and extremely useful and accurate. And so we use the plan then to develop the actual software, the platform that builds the digital twin model. And we have here a human in the loop that would be a software developer and an AI agent building that. And the final goal, let me move this little here. The final goal is to then have Fearless QC create or generate the anonymized digital twin, data, not model, but it has data in it. And then a new Fearless AI assistant, which uses an autonomous agent, reads the digital twin models and can answer research questions, can do deep analysis, can generate reports, etc. So this is what we're planning for version 2. And this is actually my last slide. It's the one slide I'm going to leave Francis with and all of you. And it's really to the topic of the session. How do we incorporate ethics into this process? How do we implement new policies? How do we build guardrails for agents and the humans that operate the agents? And why? Because one of the things is, and I know this slide has a lot of acronyms and some of them are on purpose, given the accelerating velocity of how quick these workflows get a result compared to if a human does it. And combined with the pressure that many feel in perhaps not researchers, but as in the software development world, there's a lot of pressure in keeping pace with this rapidly advancing capabilities of AI. So there is something called FOMO. I don't know how many people have heard that acronym, the fear of missing out on using AI. This in turn then prompts or triggers the human in the loop sometimes to take unnecessary risks and allow agents to operate autonomously. So I put here in parentheses the YOLO mode. This is actually a thing. So if you click on it, I mean, maybe I'll put it in the chat later. It's a blog post I just wrote yesterday, but the YOLO mode is, and YOLO means you only live once, is a mode that was introduced by Cursor, which is a coding agent and a semi-autonomous coding agent. And they implemented it very early on, and it was a mode in which the agent operated more autonomously. So that's YOLO. And there are other coding agents that did abstain from using it, but now even in March, as of March 2026, and just in February, for example, GitHub Copilot just added their own YOLO mode. So they're all moving to that autonomous operating mode. So as they're all evolving to that, it is important to implement guardrails in two ways, for agents as well as for the humans who supervise the agents. So I came up with two more acronyms here, leash and anchor. And leash, because it sounds, obviously, this is something we want to keep the autonomous agent on the leash, and limit excessive autonomy, especially when we have sensitive data, restricted access data, human biomedical data. And an anchor is basically the building of policies or policies for human compliance with with how they are supposed to interact with the agents. And with that, I'm going to give it up to Francis. So I hope you can have now a great discussion on this. It's actually here in the US, it's 3:30 in the morning, so I am going to leave the session, but I will be looking forward to look later at the video and see any great discussion and or questions and answers from all the participants. I'll stay for a little while more, like 5 minutes, and then I'll leave for the day, for the night or the morning.
Patty, thank you so much. It's okay for me if you stop sharing. I think we will. I think the more interesting part is to listen to our audience now and to get some good direction and ways forward for them from what we've done. I'll make some summary before we get into a further discussion, but we want to test you at 3:30 in the morning and see how well you're functioning. So are there any questions or observations or other things that we want to address to Patty before she runs off to get some sleep? Patty, one question I did see, and I responded to it, but perhaps not so well. I think one of the most one person asked, what does Fairlease stand for? And what does QC stand for? And when you answer that, and Bernadette, I'll come to you in a moment, but when you answer that, Patty, could you also say why QC is so interesting in the framework of data visitation. Because many people, I believe, see data visitation as more or less useful for data analysis. But I think with Fairlease, you have taken it a step further, which takes us even beyond the FAIR principles and this whole concern with FAIR, which seems to be passe now, and shows us how we can use data visitation to do much more than only data analysis.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to explain it. And I'm sorry I didn't spell it out, but QC means quality control. And one of the special aspects of Fairless is that yes, it goes beyond fair data sharing in that uh, it first analyzes if the data is even reusable. Is it really analyzable? That's the list in Fairless. So it's fair data that is analyzable. It happens quite often. I'm not only a software developer or technologist, I'm also a researcher, and I did a study. I mean, I sometimes get data from repositories and I have downloaded them, going through the whole process, or sometimes signed a data use agreement, and then I couldn't use the data. It wasn't either it wasn't what I needed, or it wasn't because it wasn't well described, or the quality wasn't good. There were missing values, etc. So what Fairless does, it visits the data where it is and analyzes it to give a good idea of what's in the data and the quality of the data. Just as an example, and you saw it, well, no, I did I give a little example there, but you could look at for outliers. Are there outliers in the data? How many missing information, and so on. I hope that answers it.
Yes, I think it's really helpful. And
Oh, and
Bernadette,
Bernadette has her hand up. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Patty. I'm in Australia and really enjoying the fact that this is happening at 5:30 p.m. my time, because normally I'm like you, although laying in bed perhaps at 11 p.m. listening to things. Thank you very much for that deep dive. That's super relevant to me. I knew nothing about Fairless, so that's great. But I'm glad that Fair is passe. I was one of the W3C working group chairs to help bring FAIR into reality, but that was circa 2011 to 13. So I'm glad it's passe and we've moved on to new things. How did you, or how do you, I should say, actively educate the researchers who might be epidemiologists, virologists, et cetera, on these principles, or do you not? And this is your framework and you're explaining it, and it's the people who have to deal with digital infrastructure who know all about this. Because I'm in a process right now of trying to identify training materials, what level of ethics and governance and training materials like socio-technical assets do we need to educate our healthcare researchers on properly handling data and the use of data in the new world order of conversational AI chatbots and agentic AI?
That's a great question. I work with biomedical researchers currently. I'm working with a scientist at a university on a study of actual human patients. And I would say that if you work with biomedical data, in my case, actually, many people, everybody's very much aware of the sensitivity of the data. So it's not necessarily something where I have to teach anyone or train them. Rather, I have to assure them that our software is HIPAA compliant, and I have to explain what guardrails we use and so on. So it's rather that way around. So it hasn't happened to me at least in our experience, that we had to train someone on with regards to protecting sensitive data. Now, with regards to fair, right? With regards to fair data sharing, that's that is different, right? Like if you want to motivate them to share the data, that is a little bit different objective that we have not really been involved with. I actually would like to know how you can do that. How do you convince researchers to share their data? We're helping them because we know many don't want to share the data. We're helping them to at least keep it clean, so that if there is at some point they are required to share it, or they want to share, they have a collaborator, the data is already in a good format.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And Barbara's comments that FAIR does not mean open. It just means in trusted communities on the spectrum of openness, it's findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Yeah, thank you very much. I didn't know anything about it, so this is very timely and helpful. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bernadette, and thank you, Barbara, too, for the comments here. Yeah. Any other questions or comment? Oh, Barbara, please. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so ODRL is a language to regulate access. Is that somehow included in this fairless approach or not?
No, I just looked at it, Barbara. I was trying to answer your question. To be honest, it's not a model that we have looked at. And as I say, in our specific cases dealing with biomedical data, I would have to look at how this applies to that.
Yeah, so in the FAIR data station, is that a concept you are aware of? The FAIR data station and the FAIR train?
Oh,
like,
yes, the FAIR train, I'm very aware. I've joined some of the meetings.
Of bonds.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
My boss.
Yes. And what we're doing is similar to the FAIR data train, except that we are more open in supporting different types of data, while his method is more about defining a standard for every one of the stations. All the stations have to comply with one standard. So data stations, right, where the trains go and visit the data. We are more flexible in that and allow customization in how we are accessing the data, and that has a lot to do with the fact that research data can be so many different domains. So you can we can also, we are implementing something like that, but I would say FAIRlessly is more flexible. And yes, I'm aware of the FAIR data train. And so
but
is
I'm
Francis.
very happy to read into what you have done. So learn more. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Any other thoughts or contributions here? I do see that Irina has asked us to fill in the information in the minutes, and please do that if possible for everyone. Just put your name and your other information in the minutes so that we have it there. I also put some screenshots on the bottom so that we, from the participants, but it would be really good if you did fill it in as well. Veronica, did you want to say anything? You've been part of this working group for quite a while, and you follow these developments. And I see you just put your name in the list as well. Veronica, please.
Yes, thank you very much for this kind introduction, and also congratulations to both of you for your excellent presentations. I am working as a principal investigator at the Jože Stefan Institute here in Ljubljana, Slovenia. And particularly, I think that this field is moving extremely fast. So it's very important, I mean, that we can work like in an interdisciplinary fashion. particularly because since I'm coming from the biomedical field, I think it's extremely important how we can handle this highly sensitive data. And particularly, I really enjoy very much this detailed explanation by Patty on this regard, because it's very important now that we are moving forward into this the role of artificial intelligence and agents, and how agentic AI can also interact or act between data and users, and so on. So I think that this today session is making a wonderful introduction into this topic, and I think that we should continue with these discussions further on after the meeting, because it's the only way that we can continue more or less being actual at the speed that the field is moving worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patty,
Thank you, Veronica.
Veronica, thank you for what you said. I think it's really helpful for what we have been talking about and where we want to go as well. Patty, maybe it would be interesting for you to say something about AI, sort of generally, and how that fits with data visitation. Is data visitation really AI? And then say, maybe if you could, also something about what would agentic AI bring to data visitation? Because I know you have been thinking about that really heavily, at least the past few months. So maybe, I think you would point us in a good direction.
Well, data visitation is not related to AI. You could deploy, as I said, a rule-based deterministic software that is all if then else statements, right? If this, then that, and so on, and it's deterministic, and you don't need to use AI. But the reason for any data visiting, or even this discussion that we're having about data visiting, is really number one, protection of data, but also it's now we want to actually be able to use AI and all the capabilities of the new emerging AI tools. And so in order to do that, we have to also do the, come up with ways to protect the data. And there are two ways, as I mentioned in my last slide. You want to protect the data first in the way you implement the technology, and you want to protect the data in the way that the humans who are using the technology, operate with it or use it. So yeah, I'm getting a little bit tired because it's almost 4 a.m. So Francis, I'm going to have to leave. But I hope you can all continue a good conversation and come up with some good ideas on what kind of policies or guardrails need to be implemented for these use cases. Okay, so I'm leaving now. Bye. Good night.
Thank you very much, Patty. Thank you so much, and have a good rest, please.
Okay.
Thank you. I think that was, for me, really, really remarkable. And I think Patty has taken us in a good direction. I'd like to come to a few of the people here and to talk about a few things as well. But if I could, and if you would permit me, I just want to give a little bit of background. We have presented the Artificial Intelligence and Data Visitation Working Group at probably at least 8 or 9 plenary sessions. So we decided not to repeat what has been done in the past so much in what we were doing. But I do want to just bring that past up into the present and into Patty's talk, and then toward the future where we want to go, because I think it's important. With the Artificial Intelligence and Data Visitation Working Group, as I said earlier on, we focused in the beginning on artificial intelligence because that was kind of what we were interested in. We didn't give much attention, let's say, to data visitation, partially because it was very new at the time we started it, and partially because it was very difficult for us to define or actually find a working model or something that was doing it. Today, that situation, even after 3.5 years, whatever, is quite different. But the focus in the work on artificial intelligence really focused, as you can see in the publications I put in the chat, it really focused on the ethics, legal, and human rights aspects of artificial intelligence. So we produced some documents that are really quite unique. For example, it is the first global guideline for ethics committees in reviewing research involving artificial intelligence, or the first global guideline with regard to informed consent in artificial intelligence. And if you look at the website, you will see that our working group was really very, very international across all continents, and with really deep participation across those continents, including the work that Patty did as well. So we started with ethics, legal, societal, human rights areas. Patty, the first thing that she did with the Tiger program was to take that background and introduce it into the Fairleys model. So to more or less impregnate it in the Fairleys model, and then to kind of repeat that exercise in further publications that are specifically focused on data visitation, that's for ethics committees and for informed consent. So we had a heavy ethics approach here. Now, you can see I also put in the chat twice now that we have a project on this, an international project with the Human Genome Project 2, which is part of a UNESCO endorsed project for the UN. We also have, with other groups, Hugo, with many other groups out there, and also with India, and we will do a meeting in Singapore on it, and in Greece, in Athens pretty soon, and so forth. So but the situation is this now. There's a real legal, if you want, in the first place, but also ethics challenge that we have. We have also done data visitation with other organizations. We've done them on genomic sets, and we've demonstrated that it's possible. In cross borders, we did it with Jordan and with the Caribbean. However, what is the real challenge today? The challenge is that, as you say, it's sensitive data. And nearly every country or in the world, or most, or either have or are coming very quickly with data protection regulations, as well as AI regulations. However, these regulations, particularly those with regard to data, are all, to my knowledge, focused on the movement of data. That is the GDPR, that is Chinese regulations, that's India regulations, that's the African Union documents on it, that's in Latin America. All of these concerns about data protection focus on the movement of data. And that has to do with the movement of data between organizations, but even more importantly, the movement of data across jurisdictions. For example, from one country to another country, or in the case of Europe or Africa, maybe from one region to another region. So they all focus on moving data. With regard to data visitation, there is no legal context for that. because we are not moving data. We are moving code to data rather than moving the data to the code. So in this context where we're not moving data, we lack a legal regulatory infrastructure that not only does that, then you would say, well, if there's no law against it, you could do it. But if there's no law against it or no law regulating it, then it becomes very difficult for people to act in that area. And the second concern that arises also is that our ethics guidelines, consent, ethics review, access to data, all these guidelines around data and around algorithms are built largely around the same thing as the laws are built, and that is moving data, not moving code. So when we use code to interrogate data across borders, be that across organizations or across jurisdictions, say between Belgium and Germany, we are kind of in a regulatory and ethics very unclear area. And that's the project that I've put in here that I thought we could focus on as well, or that we're working on as well. But I would like to hear also your comments on this, your thoughts from all of us here about how we can move forward with the ethics of AI, with data sharing, and with the use of data visitation as one instrument or one methodology for working with data. So the floor is open. And if you're all going to be quiet and so well behaved, then it's going to be challenging for me. But maybe to Veronica, please.
Yes, thank you very much, really, for this kind introduction. I think it's we are actually in the right time. I mean, to move forward with these discussions. I mean, I think that today it was an excellent opportunity that it was presented more or less the background of the topic, what it was done in the past, and actually how we can move forward. I think that probably since we already included our contact details and so on, and I see that it's quite interesting community with different backgrounds and expertise, and also spread around different regions. I think it would be a wonderful opportunity to meet somehow with a certain frequency, because the conference is an excellent opportunity, like we have once or twice per year, but nevertheless these topics requires more or less more often discussions, and particularly focusing on these different topics and aspects. So I think that now it's the right time, I mean, to make a group and to set up the topics for further discussion. I think it's also very interesting maybe also to have some kind of prototype where we can test how these things are working, because basically and also as Patsy mentioned before and so on, since we are dealing with sensitive data, many doesn't want to share it. So basically, the only way to know how things work and so on is also to have a prototype which enables maybe to track how those things are working, particularly those which are involved more on the technical aspect of the thing. Yeah, because it's not only a matter of software. Here, software is one aspect, how the things are working. But the ethical one is very important, where you, as a philosopher, we are giving more or less the basis on how the things then further behave until become totally functional and so on. So I think we are at the right time, to establish this type of discussions with a larger community with different backgrounds and expertise, and particularly because it's a different regions has different legislations and how these topics are addressed. So I think it's very important and very timely. Thank you for opening the floor with this important basis.
Thank you, Veronica. And just to answer in a brief way to you, I think the best thing to do is, if possible, to participate on Wednesday with the working group, or with the Birds of a Feather session, which is intended to try to formulate another working group or interest group out of this, together with Patty and her colleagues there, or to get involved with this international project we have under UNESCO and so forth on setting up this framework for data visitation here. I think the most advanced data visitation platform I know is with Fairley's, because it goes beyond its integrated ethics, it's integrated the regulatory environment. It goes beyond just doing data analysis. It has many more possibilities than that. We also have worked with another group, Open Mind, and done some data visitation with them. I think there's a lot of groups out there in the world today who are now doing data visitation. When we started this, it was nothing new, but I think now it's really something that's going on quite a bit here as well. Bernadette, I think I would like, you put a good comment in the chat. Would you like to speak to it? And then I'd like to ask Barbara to speak also about what she's put in the chat as well.
Yeah. All I said is, I think you heard stunned silence. That was an epic provocation. Again, speaking from an Australian context, I think, and I'm writing a paper on this very topic, that it's the solutions around these complex, they're not even complex, but these uses of agentic AI, conversational AI chatbots in the research context have to be driven by researchers ourselves. And I hope we're soon beyond the almost pattern Pavlovian response saying, oh, AI needs to be regulated, because regulation takes a really long time to even happen, and you have to have people who can enforce regulation. So it's a completely no-op to say, think this stuff should be regulated, or healthcare, life science researchers' use of it should be regulated. It's got to be driven by us. But the flip side is, what I'm observing, and we're doing some research around this, is people are just going out there in the absence of guardrails and training and maybe mechanisms such as Patty's just described, which I think is fascinating, and I can't wait to dig into it. And they're using it with fearless abandon. And I have heard the term before, that it is the Wild West, but it is like the Wild West on steroids right now. And I genuinely worry about the amount of personally identifiable information that could be shared unintentionally or intentionally in the wild abandon of using these technologies. So I agree with what Veronica said. This is absolutely the right time for a group like this. And in the past, when I've tried to consider joining RDA groups, it's always been, how will I be recognized for this work? I mean, I've been a chair of a working group for 2 years, so it's not that I'm selfish, but I think we can't do anything other than participate in these discussions and try to find solutions driven by our understanding of how these tools can and should be used ethically and responsibly. So thanks for facilitating this, Francis. It sounds like you bring a lot of depth of expertise to the space.
Thank you, Bernadette. And Barbara, I want to come to you, but just to respond to what Bernadette says, maybe on two different levels here, a couple of things. This relationship between the advancement of technology or technologies and regulation and ethics is a very interesting relationship today, because as you pointed out, these technologies advance so rapidly. I remember I was at a meeting on the development of the European AI Acts, I don't know how many years ago. It was held at the offices of Microsoft in Brussels. It had members of the European Parliament there, members of the European Commission. All the top groups were there. And I said to them, how is it possible in the future to develop even a regulation for AI today when AI advances so quickly? So one of the things we have to do is we have to somehow build, like we did with the FAIR principles for data, we have to build these principles also into the technologies. And now we have to, so we are also discussing in the AIDV working group what we call the envisaged and pilot principles, which are principles specifically for AI, and where the pilot principles will be built into the AI itself. We're still going to have a very difficult discussion between regulators, ethicists, ethics committees, and technologists. And it's going to be an even harder discussion going forward. With regard to recognition, in fact, early this morning, just before I received an email from an Australian university, as it happens, to say that the researcher participating in one of the research projects from RDA is doing so not on behalf of the university. Although this researcher is listed there as on behalf and publishes on behalf and so forth. So there's a problem, and that's something we address within Koala ARIP and within the this whole discussion on research assessment, because the only thing that seems to get recognition is that kind of thing there. Barbara, I think you have a lot to contribute here. You put in not only your last comment, but also two very good documents that you're working on within your work at Leiden University and what you're doing there, also related to data visitation and fair data principles. Go ahead, Barbara, please.
Yeah, actually, I want to start with the first, with the comment about recognition. I am writing my PhD right now on a work that I initiated in RDA. So I am the co-chair, the chair of AIDV, which is a framework for making observable properties machine readable. And this was a complete community-driven work. So there were more than 100 people contributing, at the end, 20 very active people, and I'm writing about it. And I do the PhD about it because, yeah, I know it's a community task and a community contribution, but I have been pushing forward this topic because it's so crucial to understand each other and develop a language that is understood by all domains. And there are many aspects where you can put your focus on and then also get a recognition for this work. So for me, RDA is a perfect place to find a common, or to bring people together with different expertise, discuss this from different perspectives, and then also to contribute and get recognition what you are doing. So for me, there's no problem with it, but you have to, it's a lot of extra time you have to put in, that's for sure. Because this year we are going to have probably ISO standard based on AIDV, what we have done. So quite a success story. I just want to encourage to collaborate because it's really a great opportunity. And probably I'm also considering to follow up with the Wednesday session, because I am a bit afraid that I cannot really contribute to it, because I am more semantic person. I'm not so much into AI yet. And for me, it's not easy to understand how to implement all this. But I also want to say that I got the impression that now, oh, we have to protect everything. And I completely agree with the comments that we have to be very protective towards our data, but not everything is data. There is also language that we need to share, semantics that we need to share, that must not be protected. I think that must be common good. So there are parts of our digital objects that we should really be open and share with each other. And I don't care if AI is using it. But I care about sensitive data. So we need to be very specific on what we are trying to regulate. Yeah. So
Barbara,
I'm
I'm not going to
happy
let you
somehow to
go.
learn.
Yeah. I'm not going to let you go. I put some things in there about research assessment because it's really important to the people who work in the RDA. I mean, people who work in RDA, they work without any compensation.
Yeah.
They do. People like you, not me, but people like you do an enormous amount. And if you go for, recognition from your university to get a faculty position or to get a grant or whatever it is, or if you write to the European Commission for something, it doesn't matter because it doesn't have any impact factors, it doesn't have any standing.
I would not say so. There had so many requests to collaborate because I did this work. Yeah. So
yeah, that's true too. Yeah, that's a good side to it.
Right. Yeah. I just say it was worth, I would say. Yeah.
But Barbara, get back to the data visitation, which is probably where we should be. With regard to the data visitation, I think there's almost no difference anymore between sensitive data and non-sensitive data. And I'll make an argument for that. It's not correct, but it's maybe partially correct. The first thing is, it's not only personal data that really is concerned about crossing borders, even though the GDPR presents it that way. It's about, because the real problem with sharing data and the real problem with transferring data is that it has value in and of itself. So it's almost like transferring coin or currency or something like that. So that's a problem in and of itself. Secondly, it's difficult to distinguish what is sensitive data or personal data and what is not. Then the third thing is, and this is especially maybe, I think Bernadette also hinted at it, and I know that Patty is very aware of it, is that when you do data analysis of sensitive data, even if you don't have access to that data, even if you don't see that data, even if you use advanced, let's say, data visitation tools to do that, as you're aware of, you can still unwittingly identify people from completely non-identified data. So this distinction between personal or sensitive data and non-personal, non-sensitive data, it's a legitimate distinction. It has its place. But it also has, I think, severe limitations. And my view is, rather than to talk about only sensitive data or personal data, is to talk about how do we address all data, because the problem really does arise in a certain sense with all data. Am I wrong?
Very interesting, and I'm sure I have to learn a lot in this sense. I'm probably also too, naive still. But I wanted just to say there are this, in FAIR, you talk about semantics, and I think all this knowledge representation, which is common good, should be open. Actually, I'm convinced about it. But there might be slight, nuances I should be more aware of and more protective. Yeah.
I fully agree.
Sorry, last statement. I am working now on combining LLM with semantics because I want to, we are now producing an LLM-driven I-Adopt service to help researchers doing fair representation of observations, not of the data, but describing what they observe, not the data itself, right? But I'm really convinced that I have to learn more about these aspects that you are bringing in. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting because the Nuffield Council on Bioethics is about to publish, I think within the next couple of weeks, a report on organoids. And they asked me to give them advice in the beginning before they started writing the report, to give some, I don't know, some information. So I wrote something about organoids because I've been involved with that. And now we've published one paper on sentient AI. And in fact, last night I was reading a second paper we have on sentient AI as well to be published. We're correcting it. So, because AI is going to become much more interesting in the future than it is now, because now it's largely, here's Lars has just joined us, an expert on AI, but AI now largely is dependent on data. So, and as data, as such, it has no access to the real world, if you want. It has only access to certain descriptions we make in electronic format of that world. Now, of course, that's not entirely true because it can also use photography and so forth to generate its own data. But largely, AI is, the way we understand it today and the way we use it and the way we have used it since Turing and the Dartmouth principles and so forth, is with regard to machines. But when we have AI that's part of organic life and has its own access to the world, then we're in a different world. And I think this is also going to play inside of data visitation. And Barbara, what you're just making to talk about, I think is really interesting to think about LLMs and having a semantics in connection with observation. I'm rambling, but anyway, I got too excited. My apologies. Anybody else? Because Nuria, you have said that we have the session verification of citizen-generated data on Thursday. Do you want to say something about that session, Nuria? Because I really like the idea of citizen-generated data. I live in a family of bird watchers. They're all on observation.org or the Flemish one, I forget it is here too. But they're really all involved in going out and counting birds and doing all this thing to generate data. And I think they generate more interesting data and more valuable data than I've ever generated in my life. Go ahead, Nuria. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm new to this community, and I was listening to your discussions. But we brought this together with a colleague from Kodata because we saw like citizen science data, like citizens and the public and the volunteers are contributed, as you say, Francis, with so much data on biodiversity, air pollution, deforestation. However, we still face many challenges on the uptake of data. For some, like biodiversity, sometimes is easier, but there is still like data collection that is sitting in silos. We are still failing how to make citizen science fair, and also many things as also like the proper use of semantics, right? Like then when you want the data to contribute not only to the local scale but to the global scale, maybe to the SDGs, right? Like how to make the data more fair, how to connect the existing silos and bring the data together. So we are having this this session on Thursday morning, 8 a.m. European time, and we would like to bring this discussion and build links, because I think there's so much ongoing in this RDA community. There's so many tasks that have already insights, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but bring insights from other. So I invite you all to come and help us to enhance citizen science and the uptake of citizen-generated data, because it really can fill a lot of existing gaps. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, Neria, I think you have made the biggest mistake of your life by joining this RDA Plenary 26, because you will be hooked. Because especially as a citizen scientist, but actually as a scientist, you will be hooked, because RDA really is, I think, one of the most open platforms, one of the most inclusive platforms, one of the really doing open science, but really also doing what RDA calls community science. And you are calling citizen science, which is not necessarily the same thing, but they're close, and they're getting away from this idea of hierarchical academic kind of science, where science has to be done inside of an academy, or inside of a university, or inside of a company's laboratory. Yeah. What I like about citizen science is, in a way, I think it keeps us honest, because it makes us understand that science is not a limited domain as like a sector in society. It's not that. It's a part of all of society, and all people engage in science. And all people are capable of doing science, and there are many different methodologies for doing science. And again, I really think what my brother-in-law and friends do with bird watching contributes a lot more to science than I've ever done sitting in a university or something like that. So I mean, not to take away from what people in the university do, but it's a complementary activity, and it expands science, it expands our understanding of science, and it really operates within UNESCO's recommendation on open science as well.
Yeah, I think like from my side, I'm also like a scientist, and I work on science, but I feel like sometimes in academia we forget that science is about the pursuit of knowledge. This curiosity-driven curiosity, this awe, this and we are so caught into publications, impact, that we forget what's the driver. And I think like that's also like community science, citizen observatories, participatory research, like there has many names, but I think it helps to move away from this tower, this isolation, and open again the doors of universities and maker spaces, and like as you say, like that bring the opportunity that science happens everywhere and engage everyone. I think it was not so long ago, it was maybe that's what we need to bring with citizen science.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to quick to, it's too philosophical, but you said the pursuit of science. I think it's really important, because there's, in my view, we can see science in two aspects. One is as a given body of knowledge, which is generally what we understand as a publication. That's a very legitimate and important area of science. That's also an area of science that communities and citizens participate in and also contribute to. But then there's also the pursuit of knowledge. And that is something, and that is what really philosophy is about, or what science also is about. It's not just the knowledge we have, but it's that pursuit of that knowledge that really is what drives us. And that, I believe, drives every human being, including Lars.
Yeah, I think that this is you're putting the
Lars, you might want to get closer to your microphone if that's possible.
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry.
I might got away from it. I'll bring it closer. Is it better?
Much better. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I was you're really nailing the sort of core here, but in the sort of perspective of AI, the issues and potential of citizen science is fantastic. We have a very large challenge for how to proceed with this, because with the tool of AI, because it also allows for sort of misguided additions to the science if you are not well trained within the field, because AI might give you an answer that it is very confident about that may not be actually true based on the data. And again, yeah, here is where citizen science, as in collecting data, but also but when we talk about in the pursuit of knowledge, as Francis was talking about, I think it's imperative that we put up guardrails that help citizens produce good science with the help of AI, so that the AI does not derail the citizen science by introducing noise into sort of the research stream. And this, I think, is a very big challenge for us in the coming years, much more than many of the other challenges we have around. We're talking about how to protect individuals and so on. I think one of the more challenging parts we have is how to bring the community in, but also to make sure that the guardrails around the AI help us sort of keep things on track and not accidentally derail science efforts from the community.
Loris, if I can say, and because we're in the AIDV working group still, and we're not yet in the agents working group, to keep what you said, I think it's not just for citizen science. I think it's for all science. The challenge, and the challenge is not only for science, because AI is not just for science. AI is for like everything we do. Like nothing is excluded. Nothing, you know. So you can think of a farmer in a rural area in Sweden or in a rural area in Kenya. You can, and they are going to be completely surrounded by AI. Everything they do, from the seeds they buy, from the fertilizer they use, to the banking that they do, to the trading that they do of their products or whatever. So everybody is going to be surrounded by this. So the challenge with AI is not just it's not just a scientific challenge; it's a societal challenge, and how can we organize ourselves as scientists? Let's keep it just to that. As scientists, whatever kind of scientists we are, how can we organize ourselves within a world where knowledge is not just generated by ourselves as human beings, but it's also generated through machines and probably eventually through other kinds of organic life forms. So how do we situate ourselves and how do we deal with that so that we keep our perspective on, let's say, in science, what's important to us, which is truth and knowledge, along with ethics.
Yeah.
Now everybody's gone quiet. This is very dangerous. Lars, you're usually the one who can solve these difficult issues.
Yeah, the problem is these things are of course not solvable in a few seconds. I would say that these are questions that, as you said, are um, um, permeating the entire society. But what I think is, especially as we connect to out to the bigger community, I think starting with the scientific community, both on the those that are involved in institutionalized science, so to speak, on those that are outside of that area. I think it's the start, because if we can secure the way we interact with it within the pursuit of knowledge, then we have the tools to bring that to society. But if we start without securing the knowledge, we don't have anything to base to put as a base for our society, right? Because if we blindly rush off against the sort of implementing everything without thinking about how do we secure our knowledge, how do we keep knowledge uh, alive inside this sphere of AI, I think it is we will immediately fail on the other tasks of society. So if it permeates society completely, which I also believe it does, the farmer won't be able to rely on anything unless we first can provide tools for a way of finding knowledge using AI in a ethical and moral way.
Thank you, Lars. So someone, Bernadette says, we need easier questions. Thank you, Bernadette, for that. We do have to do better. Maybe, okay, Bernadette, you put yourself on the spot. We need just 3 or 4 people to give us short statements that can get us out of this impossible discussion and give us a good direction toward the future with regard to AI, data visitation, and maybe even agentic AI. Bernadette, you are first.
Small groups of people do big, amazing things. Never let it be said that you can't have impact as a higher degree research student, as somebody who's on the edge of advanced research in industry, in government. We need all voices from all parts of the world, and a small number of people have brought us where we are today. So we're passionate. I've been part of the knowledge representation and open community-based international community when I was both in industry as a tech founder and now as an academic. And we wouldn't have anything that we have today if it hadn't been for the meetings like this that have been going on. Francis, I suppose you've been involved with them for a few decades yourself. And we've got to drive it. It's in our hands. And if you're fortunate enough to be in an environment where you have the privilege of an academic platform to speak from or a research platform, please use it. It's a privileged position in today's world, whether in industry or government or in academia. With all the stuff that's going on, we've got to be the change.
Okay, Bernadette, we are at the end of our time. I was going to ask other people to speak, but I think it's going to be very hard for people to come up with words of wisdom that go beyond what you've just said. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Lars. I want to thank everyone really for being here with us. I think we could speak for a long time, but we also have the full week ahead of us with RDA. With many other exceptional sessions. And I think the words that Bernadette leaves us with are the words that we should take to the other sessions as well. So thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you for making my morning such a good morning. And I look forward to seeing you in other RDA events this week. Cheers.